Hi, my name is Tyler Mason, and I work for Congressman Roger Marshall's office. I am doing an interview today with Seth Kastle for the Veteran History Project. Seth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Seth Kastle. I'm a retired veteran of the U.S. Army Reserve, and I have a wife named Julia. We've been married for 14 years. I have two daughters, Reagan and Kennedy, who in 2019 are 10 and 6. So that's who I am.
Awesome. Where were you born, Seth?
I was born in Phillipsburg, Kansas.
Where did you go to school?
I went to high school in Kensington, Kansas, West Smith County High School. I went through a long path. I ended up graduating from Fort Hays State University with my undergraduate degree, Southwestern College with a master's degree, and Baker University with a doctorate.
Tell me a little bit about your family, your parents specifically, growing up.
So I was raised mostly by my mom. My father actually passed away when I was about 6 years old, and so I was raised by a single mom. She got remarried when I was probably in about 5th grade to a great guy. He's still in our life today, Terry Elliott, and they supported me in really everything that I ever attempted to do, even when I probably didn't deserve it.
What did your mother think about you joining the military when you first told her?
When I first told her, oh boy, she'd kill me if she knew I said this. She was super not a fan. She's been one of my biggest supporters for my whole life, and especially since I've been in the military, for sure. But that was a pretty bitter pill, I think, for her to swallow. And you have to take into consideration this is pre 9/11 because I enlisted in 1998. And that was actually a big reason I ended up joining the Army Reserve instead of the Army. I went and I talked to a recruiter one day that came to our high school, and he sold me fast. He's one of those great salesmen, and you tell a 17-year-old kid they can blow stuff up, and they get sold pretty easy. And my mom was not a fan of me going to the Army, and because of her reaction, I ended up talking to some additional recruiters and going into the Army Reserve instead.
You kind of harped already on Fort Hays State University.
Mm-hmm.
Any other primary or secondary schools did you do before the military?
No, I graduated from high school. I enlisted in November of my senior year, so I went to basic training right after I graduated high school. Like I said, I was in the Army Reserve, so I did my initial entry training. I came back and I did the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, the typical reserve thing. Actually, I failed out of college at one point in that journey. But then I ended up deploying for a number of years, and then when I came home, I ended up going back to school.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military? Just some of the thoughts you expected, and then was it what you expected, or was it a completely 180 from what you thought it was going to be?
It was pretty on par with what I expected. I mean, your initial entry training, I think, is a rude wake-up call for everybody that goes into the military every time. And while I expected that, I don't think you can ever really expect what that's going to be like when you go in. So, as far as my expectations, yeah, it was definitely on par with it, but you can never really prepare yourself for what it's like when your bus pulls on to that training site for you to begin your military journey.
I know exactly what that is. Where'd you go to basic? Where'd you go to basic, and any particular instructor stand out to you to this day that you remember?
Yeah, I went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I still remember my senior drill sergeant, Drill Sergeant Layden. To this day, if I heard that man's voice, I would probably still wet my pants, and I'm 38 years old.
Outside of basic, any specialized training that you had in the military?
So I was fortunate. I got a number of opportunities to do some types of specialized training. I was chosen out of 16,000 soldiers in the 89th Regional Readiness Command to attend airborne school. There's only 2 slots, and I was able to get one of those. Later in my career, I ended up being selected into the Army's Drill Sergeant program, and so I attended the Drill Sergeant Academy at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
With you being in the reserve, I'm assuming you went back to Kansas after
Yes.
basic training,
Yep.
right? Cool. You kind of harped already on a deployment. Where all did you serve? How many times did you deploy?
Okay. So actually, I deployed twice. Um, I had mentioned that I was failing out of college, and I did that pretty effectively. But right after that happened was when September 11th happened. And so, I was a young soldier that wanted my chance to go, and I would actually deploy in January of 2002, and a 20-man det from my unit went to the country of Qatar. And then in April of that year, I went forward to Mazar-e-Sharif, Afghanistan, where I was augmented to the Jordanian army. And then I came home in September of that year. I would actually turn around. I got deployed again that following January, just a few months after that, for the initial invasion of Iraq. And we would cross the border on, I think, 16 days after the first ground troops had entered the country. So we weren't even all the way to Baghdad yet. And in the invasion, but the invasion of Iraq happened very fast, much faster than really anyone thought it was going to happen, and so our mission changed constantly as that went forward. I ended up spending most of my time in Iraq on FOB Diamondback in Mosul.
Assuming with you being in the initial invasions, you seen a lot of combat, or were you more combat support?
Well, we were, by nature of our MOS, we were combat support. So I was in a medical logistics unit. When I was in Afghanistan, I was on what was called a fleet, a forward logistics element, and we supported a humanitarian mission in Afghanistan through the Jordanian Field Hospital. In Iraq, I was on what was called a forward distribution team, and the idea behind that in a forward deployed element is you're a transportation company, so we spent the bulk of our time was doing convoys and stuff like that. As any good reserve unit, we had all soft side vehicles, no crew served weapons or radios or any of that stuff, but we went out and did our job.
Out of the two deployments that you did have, what medals, if you want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
that, were you awarded?
So in Afghanistan, I was awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, and in Iraq, I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal.
What was the best part of your service experience?
The brothers that I gained, those men are still to this day. I've been out of the army for a number of years now, and they're still the closest friends that I'll ever have.
So it's safe to it is safe to say that you stay in touch with them all quite an
Yeah.
awful
Yeah,
lot.
as much as any of us can. Like the older you get, the busier you get, the harder it is. But when I look at all other aspects of my life, there is more of us from my time in the army that stay in contact than any other piece of my life.
How many years?
16 years.
16
Mm-hmm.
years. And I'm assuming on the last day of the 16th year, do you recall that day?
Yes. So I actually, I was at home when it happened because I actually had to be medically retired from the army because of some heart issues, and I had fought it and fought it and fought the medical process for a long time, and it was not a winning battle for me, and so I had to accept that I was going to be retired early, and I got I got the orders in the mail, and that was just it was just another day. I guess I didn't really think about it. What didn't really hit me that I was getting out, that I was really done with this piece of my life, was I went actually to McConnell Air Force Base and to get my retired ID, and it's a little E2, E3 that's working at the personnel office, and he's just like he's like, okay, great, here you go, thanks, have a good day. I was just like, don't you know who I am? I was a first sergeant, right? Like, I was really important at one point in my career, and none of that matters anymore.
Did you use your GI Bill?
Yes, you know, because I was in reserve, I got Chapter 1606 GI Bill, which was about $300 a month. And I used that for a couple semesters when I wasn't doing great in college. When I got back from my deployments, I used GI Bill to finish up school and then go to graduate school, Chapter 1607 GI Bill, which was much more lucrative, but still not as beneficial as what soldiers have now with the post 9/11 GI Bill.
It's really impressive. What's the highest degree you have, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I have a doctorate of education and educational leadership.
Cool. Well, we're coming to the end of your service time here. So, how did that service time change you as a person?
So, you know, those formidable years of my life shaped me in every way. You know, there was a large part of my identity that was attached to being a soldier. Um, you know, my time in the military definitely moved me through the rest of my life. My time on my deployments had a pretty a pretty profound effect, I think, on who I am as a person, who I am as a father and a husband. Um, you know, we went through, like I said, we were really early in the invasion. We went through a lot of stuff that we had to process. My wife was overseas with me also. We actually met. I proposed to her on top of a bunker in Iraq in 2003. Um, you know, it's not Paris, but it worked for us. And you know, we had a lot to process when we got home. On top of all the other new couple things, I guess we had both spent 21 of the last 24 months in a combat zone, and so we had a rough time reintegrating. You have to take into consideration this is 2004, so the conversations about how you should reintegrate into civilian society are very different today than they were then, just because it was so early. You know, I didn't know what the VA was. I didn't know what PTSD was or any of that stuff that I think people are probably a little more educated on now.
I'm glad you brought that up. I kind of want to talk a little about PTSD if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You had a unique way of handling the PTSD once you kind of figured out what it really was. Could you go into that?
Yeah. So, you know, I had my struggles for sure, and like I said, this is 2004 when we came home, and I struggled for a long time. I struggled for over a decade, and didn't ever really say anything, and just kind of lived with it until it got to a point that I was probably going to lose all the good things in my life. And I ended up going and getting some counseling and stuff like that. And through counseling, I gained a lot of self-awareness that helped me kind of process this. And, you know, who I was as a husband always wasn't who I wanted to be. My wife stuck with me though, and she understood. But you know, who I was as a father also wasn't always who I wanted to be. So I wanted a way to explain to my kids why I am the way I am now, and I started looking for a resource to tell that story, and I couldn't find it because there just really wasn't that many resources out there. So I took the opportunity to write a book, and I wrote a children's book on PTSD in military families. Like I had a crappy day at work one day, and I came home and I sat at my kitchen table and I said I'm going to do this, and I wrote the whole book, illustration notes and everything in about 30 minutes, and then I just filed it away on my computer, never to be seen again. And I have a good friend that, you know, like, we graduated high school together and joined the Army together and deployed together, and he had just graduated with his doctorate and published a book on his dissertation research. And you know, he kept getting after me about starting to take the steps to do this. So because of his constant annoying behavior, I started taking the steps to publish my book. I ended up self-publishing a book called Why Is Dad So Mad? It's a children's book about PTSD in military families.
Now, I was lucky enough to get a copy of that book. Would you mind showing the cover for anyone who watches this video? So maybe if
Yeah.
one day they don't know how to
Yeah.
do it, maybe they could.
So this is what the books look like. Like I said, it's called Why Is Dad So Mad? It's a book about PTSD in military families. The whole idea is to help children who have parents who are struggling with this understand kind of, I guess the thesis statement of the book is that this isn't your fault. Your parents love you more than anything, no matter what. You know, I also was fortunate enough, because my wife had had some of the similar experiences that I had. We worked together and wrote a book for moms who struggle with combat-related PTSD also, called Why Is Mom So Mad? And both those books are available on Amazon, if that's still a thing when you're watching this.
What do you post-military? What do you do now?
Okay, now I'm a professor of leadership studies at Fort Hays State University.
That's not all. You also advocate a lot for military people at Fort Hays, if I remember correctly. You want to give us a little spiel in behind that?
Yeah, so I just, you know, after I retired from the military, I struggled a lot with that, because I felt like I had this enormous part of my adult life. I had these 16 years of military experience that were now useless. You know, I was a company first sergeant. I had almost climbed to the pinnacle of the enlisted ranks, and now I was left without an outlet for that. And I knew that I had a deep care and passion for the military, but I didn't know how to follow that. And so I started thinking of ways to put my military experience to use. And because I work at a state university in Kansas, I've had a great deal of opportunities to do that, whether it's setting up a community access point, which allows people anywhere in the commutable distance of Hayes to come and seek counseling or veteran support services. They can do that at the university without being in the VA system or part of the university. I developed a new degree program for service members that allows them to get an associate's degree with only taking 8 classes. And like currently, right now, I'm in the middle of developing an OCS program, Officer Candidate School partnership with the Kansas Army National Guard and Fort Hays State University.
I just want to take the time. He didn't know I was going to say this, but as another veteran, it's remarkable what you're doing. I just want you to know that you're inspiring.
Thank you.
You are. For the future generations that are going to watch this video, what would you like to leave behind or for them to hear, or motivationally?
Let's go with always look for opportunities to serve others. Service above self is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to your surrounding community. We all have a responsibility for where we live, and so that can look a lot of different ways. That can look like military service, or that can look like running for your local school board, or just taking care of your neighbors. Whatever the case may be, take advantage of those opportunities, because they aren't just opportunities, they're your responsibility.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
I guess I wish that more people understood the value that veterans can bring to their organization through work ethic, problem solving, things of that nature. There is a lot that we bring to the table. I think at that same token, it's very important for veterans to figure out that the civilian sector doesn't understand that, and if you don't purposefully market that piece, it's no additional opportunities are going to be extended to you, so it's up to you to sell yourself.
Is there anything else we should talk about or that we haven't covered that you would like to cover?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, today is November 9th, 2019. Monday is Veterans Day, so I want to be the first one to thank you for your service and tell you Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for your service.